Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into something absolutely insane. What if Naruto was a Lunarian from One Piece? For those who don't know, Lunarians are literally called gods. They can survive anywhere, have unbreakable bodies, fly with massive wings, and control divine fire that melts everything. King the Wildfire tanked mountain-busting attacks like nothing. So we thought, what if we gave this broken divine heritage to the most determined character in anime? Naruto with starfire wings, flames hotter than the sun, and godlike durability. This epic story follows his journey from discovering his extinct bloodline to choosing between godhood and humanity in a world-shaking finale. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell. Let's dive into this masterpiece. The starfire blade hummed with power as Kaido began Naruto's education in the hidden chamber beneath the Hokage monument. Above them, the sounds of the protocol's search grew more frantic, energy weapons discharging against stone, boots thundering through passages that hadn't echoed with human presence for decades. "First lesson," Kaido said, his voice carrying the authority of millennia. "Everything you think you know about our people is incomplete." Naruto wiped sweat from his forehead, still recovering from the morning's attack. The suppression seal on his chest had finally given up completely, leaving his Lunarian heritage burning at full intensity. The heat was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. The Hokage showed me scrolls, fragments, shadows cast by firelight on cave walls. Kaido moved to the chamber's center where the massive seal array pulsed with soft luminescence. "What did those scrolls tell you about why we were hunted? That governments feared gods they couldn't control. True, but incomplete." Kaido placed his palm against the central seal and the chamber transformed. Light blazed from hidden crystals embedded in the walls, revealing murals that took Naruto's breath away. The painted figures weren't just warriors, they were protectors. Scene after scene showed Lunarians defending villages from natural disasters, healing the sick with controlled flame, using their flight abilities to rescue people from floods and avalanches. They looked like the heroes from children's stories, beings of pure nobility and selfless courage. "We weren't hunted because we were powerful," Kaido said softly. "We were hunted because we refused to serve." The old Lunarian moved along the wall, his fingers tracing scenes of growing conflict. Here, a group of sky warriors stood defiant before a king's throne. There, Lunarians used their flames to destroy weapons of war rather than wield them. And finally, the darkest mural of all, armies converging on a mountain city wreathed in white fire. "The last great gathering," Kaido whispered, 700 years ago when the remaining clans came together to make their final stand. They thought their combined power would be enough to deter the coalition arrayed against them. What happened? Betrayal. The word fell like a stone into still water. One of our own, seduced by promises of power and position, revealed the location of our sanctuary. The armies came not with conventional weapons, but with something far more insidious. Kaido gestured to the final panel, which showed Lunarians collapsing even as their flames burned brightest. Their bronze skin was mottled with spreading darkness, their wings withering like flowers touched by frost. "A plague," Naruto breathed, "designed specifically for your bloodline, our bloodline. Never forget that you carry the same heritage, the same vulnerabilities." Kaido's expression grew haunted. "I was young then, barely awakened to my full power. I survived because I was away from the mountain when the plague struck, sent to negotiate with distant allies who never came." The weight of that revelation settled over Naruto like a shroud. This man had carried the guilt of survival for 7 centuries, watching and waiting for signs that their people might yet endure. "But you found others, right? Other survivors?" "A few. Scattered individuals, hidden bloodlines, children who manifested late." Kaido's flames dimmed with grief. One by one, the protocol found them. Some were captured and experimented upon. Others fought to the end rather than surrender. A precious few managed to hide their heritage completely, living as normal humans until old age claimed them. "And now I'm the only one left." "No," Kaido's voice sharpened. "You are the only one who has awakened fully while still young enough to grow stronger. The difference matters more than you know." The old Lunarian led Naruto to another section of the chamber, where weapons and artifacts lay arranged on stone pedestals. Each item radiated power: swords that flickered with contained starfire, armor that seemed to be crafted from crystallized moonlight, orbs that held miniature suns in their cores. "These are the treasures of our people," Kaido explained. "Saved from the Great Purge, hidden away for the day when they would be needed again. Most of them are too powerful for you to wield safely, yet. But this—" He lifted a bracelet of woven silver, its surface inscribed with symbols that hurt to look at directly. "This is a focusing matrix. It will help you channel your heritage more precisely, prevent the wasteful energy discharge that leaves you vulnerable after major techniques." Naruto accepted the bracelet with reverent hands. The moment it touched his skin, his flames stabilized, burning with cleaner intensity. The constant heat that had plagued him since the suppression seal failed cooled to a comfortable warmth. "Better?" Kaido asked. "Much." Naruto flexed his fingers, marveling at the improved control. "Why give this to me now? Why risk revealing yourself? Because they're coming." Kaido's expression grew grim. "Not just the protocol hunters above us, but their true masters. I've spent decades tracking their activities, following the trails of captured Lunarians to their source. What I found," he shuddered. "They don't just want to eliminate our bloodline, they want to harvest it." The temperature in the chamber dropped as Naruto's flames responded to his horror. "Harvest? The same governments that orchestrated the original purge have been secretly attempting to weaponize Lunarian abilities. Failed super soldier programs, attempts to grant flight to their elite units, weapons designed to channel divine fire." Kaido moved to the chamber's far wall, where maps and photographs were pinned in organized chaos. "Every captured Lunarian has contributed to their research. Every death has brought them closer to artificial godhood." Naruto studied the evidence with growing rage. Military installations, research facilities, photographs of failed experiments that looked more like torture devices than scientific equipment. At the center of it all, a single name appeared again and again: Project Celestial. "They're close to a breakthrough," Kaido continued. "Close to creating artificial Lunarians under their complete control. When that happens, our true extinction will begin, not just physical but spiritual. They will parade their synthetic gods before the world, claiming to have perfected what nature made flawed. Then we stop them." "I stop them," Kaido corrected firmly. "You are still learning, still growing into your power. This task requires someone expendable." "No!" The word exploded from Naruto with enough force to crack the stone beneath his feet. "I'm not losing the only other person who understands what I am, and I am not watching another young flame burn out before their time." Kaido's own power flared, ancient and terrible in its controlled fury. "You think this is about companionship, about easing your loneliness? This is about ensuring that someone survives to carry our heritage forward." The two Lunarians faced each other across the chamber, divine fire casting dancing shadows on the walls. For a moment, it seemed like they might actually fight, elder and student, survivor and heir, 2 points of light in an ocean of darkness. Then Naruto's flames dimmed, and when he spoke, his voice carried newfound maturity. "You're wrong about one thing, old man. I'm not the next you. I'm not going to spend my life hiding, watching everyone I care about die while I survive." He touched the silver bracelet, feeling its power resonate with his heritage. "I'm going to be the first Lunarian who doesn't have to carry the weight alone." Kaido stared at him for a long moment, ancient eyes reading depths of determination that hadn't existed an hour before. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Perhaps you're right, perhaps it is time for a different approach." The old man moved to the weapon wall and selected a second blade, this one smaller and more suited to Naruto's size. "Very well, young flame, we face them together. But you will follow my lead, obey my commands without question, and retreat if I order it." "Deal." Naruto accepted the weapon, feeling its weight settle naturally in his grip. "But you have to promise me something too." "What?" "That you'll survive this, that you'll help me find the others, the dormant bloodlines, the hidden descendants, that will rebuild what was lost." Above them, an explosion shook dust from the ceiling. The protocol had found their entrance. Kaido's smile widened, revealing the fearless joy of a warrior who had waited 7 centuries for a worthy battle. "I promise, heir of Starfear. But first, let us remind these hunters why their ancestors feared the children of the moon." White flames erupted around both figures as they prepared for war, and in that moment, Naruto understood something crucial about his heritage. The Lunarians hadn't been destroyed because they were too weak to fight back. They had been destroyed because they had fought alone. That mistake would not be repeated. The chamber filled with the light of twin suns as elder and student moved toward the entrance, ready to face whatever waited in the tunnels above. Behind them, the murals seemed to glow with approval, as if the painted heroes of old were blessing this moment. For the first time in 700 years, two Lunarians marched to battle side by side. The Age of Gods was about to return with interest. The Hidden Leaf Village's Chunin exams had always been a crucible where young shinobi proved their worth, but nothing in the tournament's history had prepared the arena for what was about to unfold. In the week since Naruto's encounter with Kaido and the Protocol Hunters, word had somehow leaked. Whispers of divine bloodlines and impossible flames that had spread through the underground networks faster than wildfire. Now, as Naruto stood across from Sasuke Uchiha in the final round preliminaries, the air itself seemed to crackle with anticipation. The stands were packed beyond capacity, filled with spectators who had come to witness either the rise of a new legend or the spectacular destruction of an old myth. Sasuke's transformation was immediately visible. The curse mark Orochimaru had planted on his neck had evolved beyond its original form, spreading across his skin in patterns that resembled circuit boards more than traditional seals. His Sharingan spun with an intensity that bordered on madness, but behind the red glow, Naruto could see something far worse than hatred. Envy. Pure, consuming envy that had festered into something toxic. Finally, Sasuke said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the arena's stone walls vibrate. No more holding back, no more pretending we're equals. Sasuke, Naruto tried to reach out with words the way he always had. This isn't you, the curse mark is. The curse mark is giving me what I need. Sasuke's chakra exploded outward, dark and violent, tinged with energies that didn't belong in the natural world. Do you have any idea what it's like? Watching you casually reveal divine heritage while I scrape and claw for every scrap of power. The curse mark's influence spread further, and suddenly Sasuke wasn't entirely human anymore. His fingernails lengthened into claws, his canine teeth extended, and most disturbing of all, his Sharingan began to spin fast enough to create afterimages in the air. I was supposed to be the genius, he continued, his voice now carrying multiple tones as if several people were speaking in harmony. I was supposed to be the one with the legendary bloodline, but what do I get? The power to see death coming and the inability to prevent it. Naruto felt his Lunarian heritage respond to the challenge, white flames beginning to seep through his skin. The focusing bracelet Kaido had given him helped him maintain control, but the ancient fire recognized threat when it sensed it. Your power isn't cursed, Sasuke. You're letting Orochimaru twist. Orochimaru understands what you never could. Sasuke's form blurred as he launched himself across the arena with inhuman speed. Power is the only thing that matters. Everything else is just pretty words and false hope. The first clash sent shockwaves through the arena that cracked stone and shattered windows. Sasuke's enhanced speed met Naruto's divine reflexes in a display that had the crowd gasping. But this wasn't the playful rivalry they'd maintained since the academy. This was a battle between fundamentally different philosophies made manifest in supernatural flesh. Sasuke's Chidori crackled to life, but the technique was wrong. Instead of the clean lightning chakra Kakashi had taught him, this version was polluted with curse mark energy, creating something that looked more like controlled destruction than precise surgery. Chidori. Black lightning? The attack carved through the air where Naruto had been standing, leaving a trench in the arena floor that glowed with residual malevolent energy. Only his enhanced perception had allowed him to dodge, and even then the technique's proximity had left burns on his skin. You're letting that thing change you, Naruto called out as he landed on the opposite side of the arena. This isn't strength, it's corruption. Corruption? Sasuke laughed, the sound carrying notes of hysteria. You want to talk about corruption? You're the one carrying the blood of extinct gods. You're the one who makes reality bend around your emotions. To prove his point, Sasuke began weaving hand signs at superhuman speed. But these weren't techniques from the Uchiha clan archives. They were something else entirely, jutsu that had been fed to him through the curse mark's connection to Orochimaru's vast knowledge. Fire style. Dragon flame bombs. Multiple dragons of dark fire erupted from Sasuke's mouth, each one guided by his Sharingan's predictive abilities to cut off Naruto's escape routes. The technique was flawless in execution, demonstrating mastery that should have taken years to develop. But Naruto's response made the crowd fall silent. His wings manifested not gradually but instantly, an explosion of divine radiance that turned the arena into a temporary cathedral of light. Each feather was a blade of crystallized starfire, and when he moved, it was with the fluid grace of something that had never been bound by earthly concerns. The dragon flames met Lunarian fire and simply ceased. Not overpowered or countered, but negated on a fundamental level, as if divine flame had judged them unworthy of existence. Impossible, Sasuke breathed, his Sharingan spinning faster as it tried to process what it had witnessed. Fire techniques don't just cancel each other out like that. They do when one of them burns with the authority of creation itself, Naruto said quietly. The focusing bracelet was working overtime to help him maintain control, but he could feel his heritage responding to Sasuke's challenge with increasing intensity. Sasuke, please stop this before it goes too far. But Sasuke was beyond reasoning now. The curse mark had spread to cover half his body, and his chakra was taking on qualities that made even veteran Jounin in the stands shift uncomfortably. This wasn't just dark, it was hungry, seeking to devour and corrupt everything it touched. Too far, Sasuke's form blurred again, but this time he didn't just move. He seemed to partially phase out of reality, becoming something between solid matter and living shadow. I'll show you too far. The technique he unleashed had no name in any official jutsu catalog. It was pure curse mark energy given form and purpose, a construct of crystallized hatred that sought to drain the life from everything it touched. When it struck the arena wall as a test, ancient stone crumbled to dust in seconds. Naruto felt his own power respond with alarm. This wasn't just a threat to him, it was a threat to everyone in the arena. If that technique connected with the stands, his flames roared to life with protective fury, burning not just hot but pure. This was Lunarian fire in its true form, not just destruction but purification. The energy that had once allowed his people to heal as well as harm, to create as well as destroy. Lunarian art, purifying dawn. White fire exploded from Naruto's position, but instead of expanding outward like a normal fire technique, it moved with intelligence and purpose. Streams of divine flame sought out every trace of curse mark corruption in the arena, burning it away without touching anything else. Sasuke screamed as the purifying fire washed over him, not in pain, but in rage as he felt the artificial power he'd grown to depend on being systematically cleansed from his system. The curse mark tried to resist, drawing deeper from Orochimaru's distant reserves, but it was fighting a force that predated civilization itself. When the flames died down, Sasuke collapsed to his knees, the curse mark reduced to fading shadows on his skin. His Sharingan was still active, but the manic intensity had faded, leaving behind something far more heartbreaking, the naked desperation of someone who had just lost everything they thought made them special. "Why?" he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Why do you get to be the chosen one? Why do you get to have power without paying the price?" Naruto landed beside his fallen teammate, his wings folding back into nothingness. The arena was so quiet that every word carried to the furthest seats. "Because I'm not the chosen one, Sasuke. I'm just someone who refuses to let his power consume him." He extended a hand to help his friend up. "The difference isn't in what we were born with, it's in what we choose to do with it." For a moment, it seemed like Sasuke might take the offered hand. His fingers twitched toward Naruto's, and hope flickered in his eyes like candlelight in a storm. Then Orochimaru's voice whispered from the shadows of the arena, carried by jutsu that made it seem like the serpentine Sannin was speaking directly into Sasuke's ear. "Power freely given is power that can be taken away. But power seized and held by will alone, that belongs to you forever." Sasuke's expression hardened. He knocked Naruto's hand away and stood under his own power, his Sharingan beginning to spin once more. "This isn't over," he said, his voice carrying the weight of an oath. "You can cleanse the curse mark, but you can't cleanse my resolve. I will have power equal to yours, Naruto. Whatever it takes." He walked toward the arena exit, leaving Naruto standing alone in the center of the battlefield. The crowd remained silent, sensing that they had witnessed something far more significant than a simple tournament match. In the cage box, Hiruzen leaned forward with troubled eyes. "The boy's power continues to grow," he murmured to his advisors. "But so does the attention it draws." Indeed, in the shadows beyond the arena, figures with familiar energy weapons watched through long-range scopes. The Divine Eradication Protocol had found their target again, and this time they had seen exactly what they were dealing with. As Naruto left the arena to the sound of stunned applause, he couldn't shake the feeling that his display of power had changed something fundamental. Not just in his relationship with Sasuke, but in the balance of the world itself. The last Lunarian had shown his true strength in full view of the world. Now everyone would want a piece of him, governments, criminal organizations, and forces far darker than either. But as he felt the weight of Kaido's focusing bracelet on his wrist and remembered the old Lunarian's words about fighting alongside allies instead of alone, Naruto found himself oddly at peace with the coming storm. Let them come. He was done hiding what he was. The Age of Gods was returning, whether the world was ready or not. The attack on Konoha began not with the traditional explosive tags and earth-shaking jutsu of the joint sand sound invasion, but with silence, a crushing, unnatural quiet that fell over the village like a burial shroud. It was the kind of silence that came when sound itself was being systematically murdered. Naruto stood atop the Hokage Tower, white flames dancing around his clenched fists as he surveyed the horror unfolding below. What should have been a conventional assault by Orochimaru's forces had become something far more sinister. Mixed among the sound and sand shinobi were figures in the familiar dark tactical gear of the Divine Eradication Protocol, their energy weapons carving through Konoha's defenders with methodical precision. "They're not just here for the village," Kaido said, appearing beside him in a flicker of starfire. The old Lunarian's expression was grim as he watched protocol agents systematically target anyone who came to Naruto's aid. "This entire invasion is a trap designed to isolate you." The revelation hit like a physical blow. "They're using Orochimaru's attack as cover. Worse, I suspect they helped orchestrate it." Kaido pointed to the barrier rising around the village, not the typical technique of the Sound 4, but something that pulsed with the same energy signatures as the protocol's suppression technology. "Look at the frequency patterns. This isn't just meant to keep people in or out, it's designed to dampen divine fire." As if to prove his point, Naruto felt his flames flicker as the barrier reached its full strength. The focusing bracelet on his wrist grew hot, working overtime to maintain his connection to his Lunarian heritage. Whatever the protocol had learned from their previous encounters with his people, they had used that knowledge to craft the perfect prison. A massive explosion rocked the tower as something struck its base. Through the smoke and debris, Naruto saw them, not one or two squads this time, but an entire battalion of protocol soldiers, supported by what looked like mechanical constructs powered by artificial divine fire. "Seraphim units," Kaido breathed, his face going pale. They actually managed to build synthetic Lunarians. The machines were grotesque parodies of their natural counterparts, metal wings that left trails of artificial starfire, armor plating that glowed with stolen divinity, weapons that channeled perverted versions of techniques that should have died with the ancient clans. Watching them move through Konoha's streets, burning everything they touched, was like witnessing the defilement of a sacred grave. "How many of our people did they dissect to create those things?" Naruto's voice shook with barely contained fury. "Too many?" Kaido's own flames began to burn brighter, responding to centuries of suppressed rage. "But now we make them pay for every drop of divine blood they spilled." They leaped from the tower together, diving into the chaos below. The moment Naruto's feet touched the street, the full weight of the suppression barrier hit him. His flames dimmed to barely visible wisps, his enhanced speed dropped to merely human levels, and the constant connection to cosmic forces that had become as natural as breathing was reduced to a thin trickle. "Stay close," Kaido warned, his own power similarly affected. "We need to reach the barrier's source and destroy it before..." An energy blast scorched the air between them, forcing them to roll in opposite directions. Protocol soldiers emerged from every doorway and alley, their weapons trained on the two Lunarians with mechanical precision. "Target acquired," one of them reported into his comm unit. "Both subjects are within suppression range." Beginning containment protocol. But even weakened, Naruto and Kaido were still inheritors of divine flame. They moved like dancers through the energy barrage, their reduced abilities still far beyond what most shinobi could achieve. Naruto's diminished fire was precise as a surgeon's blade, while Kaido's centuries of experience allowed him to fight with devastating efficiency even at a fraction of his full power. The Seraphim units proved more challenging. Their artificial nature made them immune to many of the techniques that would cripple living opponents, and their stolen divine fire matched Naruto's own diminished flames pound for pound. When the first one cornered him in a narrow alley, its metal wings spreading wide to block his escape, Naruto felt a moment of genuine despair. Then Sasuke Uchiha dropped from the rooftop above, his newly evolved Sharingan spinning with deadly purpose. "Don't get the wrong idea, Dobi," Sasuke said as his Chidori carved through the Seraphim's power core. "I just refuse to let artificial trash kill you before I get my rematch." The curse mark was gone, burned away by Naruto's purifying flames during their tournament match, but something new had taken its place. A cold, focused determination that was somehow more frightening than Orochimaru's corruption had ever been. "Sasuke, how are you here? The barrier affects divine energy, not Sharingan techniques." Sasuke's 3-tamo spun as he analyzed the battlefield. "Though I noticed it's giving you some trouble." Before Naruto could respond, the remaining Seraphim units began converging on their position. Protocol soldiers repelled from nearby buildings, their energy weapons charging with lethal intent. From the village center came the sound of more explosions as the conventional invasion forces clashed with Konoha's defenders. "We need to split up," Kaido called out, his own battle against 3 protocol squads leaving him bloodied but unbroken. "The barrier's source is in the old training grounds, I'll handle that. You two focus on the Seraphim before they level the residential district." "No," Naruto's voice cracked with desperation. "We stick together, that's what separates us from failure," Kaido finished gently. "Yes, young flame. But sometimes protecting what you love means accepting that you cannot save everyone." The old Lunarian's flames flared one final time, burning through the suppression barrier's effects through sheer force of will. For a moment, he blazed like a falling star, his power restored to its full ancient glory. Protocol soldiers screamed as divine fire washed over them, their advanced equipment melting like candle wax. Then Kaido collapsed, the effort of forcing his power through the barrier having cost him decades of remaining life force. Blood ran from his eyes and nose, but he still managed to smile at Naruto with paternal pride. "Remember," he whispered as protocol reinforcements closed in around him. "You are not the last. You are the first of the new age. Kaito." But the old Lunarian was already moving, his failing body carrying him toward the barrier's source with the single-minded determination of someone who had waited 7 centuries for a worthy death. The protocol soldiers tried to stop him, but divine fire, even dying divine fire, was still beyond their ability to contain when it burned with pure purpose. The explosion that followed lit up the entire village. The suppression barrier flickered and died, its generators overloaded by feedback from Kaido's final technique. Suddenly, Naruto's full power came rushing back like a dam bursting, white flames erupting from every pore as his Lunarian heritage reasserted itself. "Now," Sasuke said quietly, his Sharingan tracking the movements of the remaining Seraphim units. "Show me what a god looks like when he's truly angry." Naruto's response was wordless fury made manifest. His wings exploded from his shoulder blades with enough force to shatter windows for blocks around, each feather a blade of stellar fire. The artificial Lunarians tried to match his display, their mechanical wings spreading in mockery of divine grace. The difference was immediately apparent. Their flames were pale imitations, powerful but soulless. Naruto's fire burned with the accumulated love and loss of an entire people, for Kaido, for every Lunarian who had died in the Great Purge, for the future generations who would never know the touch of starlight unless he succeeded here and now. Lunarian art, stellar convergence? The technique had no precedent in any scroll or training manual. It erupted from Naruto's heritage like water from a spring, carrying with it the knowledge of techniques that predated written history. White fire descended from the sky itself, drawing power from the sun and stars to fuel a conflagration that burned only what Naruto willed it to burn. The Seraphim units tried to resist, their stolen divinity clashing against the real thing in displays that turned the sky into a battlefield of light and shadow. But artificial fire, no matter how perfectly crafted, could never match the passion of someone fighting to protect their home. One by one, the mechanical abominations fell, their power cores overloading as genuine divine flame proved their artificial nature inadequate. The protocol soldiers tried to regroup, to bring their energy weapons to bear, but they were fighting a force of nature now, something that couldn't be suppressed or contained because it was fueled by something their technology couldn't measure. Love. Hope, the stubborn refusal to let evil triumph over good. When the last enemy fell, Naruto stood in the center of a crater of fused glass, his flames slowly dimming as the immediate threat passed. Around him, Konoha's defenders emerged from their shelters, staring in awe at the boy who had single-handedly turned the tide of battle. But Naruto barely noticed their reverence. His eyes were fixed on the distant explosion where Kaido had made his final stand, and tears of liquid fire traced paths down his cheeks. "He's gone," he whispered. "Yes," Sasuke said simply, "but not forgotten. And not unavenged." They stood together in the aftermath, rivals and teammates and something more, two young men who had seen the price of power and chosen to pay it anyway. Around them, the village began the slow process of healing, but both boys knew that this was only the beginning. The protocol would return with greater numbers, better weapons, more desperate tactics. Other forces would emerge from the shadows, drawn by the display of divine power like moths to flame. But they would face whatever came together, as Kaido had always intended. The age of Lunarians fighting alone was over. The age of gods standing alongside mortals had begun. As the sun set over the scarred but unbroken village, white flames danced one final time around Naruto's fingers, not a display of power, but a promise to the dead and a beacon for the living. The last Lunarian would not fall as his people had. He would rise and in rising lift others with him. The hunt was far from over, but now the hunters had become the hunted. 3 days after the invasion, Konoha resembled a city caught between destruction and rebirth. Reconstruction crews worked around the clock to repair the damage, but the scars ran deeper than broken buildings and cratered streets. The village had seen something that challenged their understanding of the world itself, a display of divine power that belonged in legends, not on their doorsteps. Naruto sat alone on the remains of the Hokage Tower's roof, watching the sun rise over his wounded home. The focusing bracelet on his wrist had cracked during the battle, its silver surface spiderwebbed with hairline fractures that pulsed with residual starfear. Without Kaido's steady presence, the weight of his heritage felt heavier than ever. "The council wants to see you." He didn't turn at the sound of Hiruzen's voice. The third Hokage moved with the careful steps of a man who had aged years in the span of days, his face bearing new lines that spoke of impossible decisions and sleepless nights. "Let me guess," Naruto said quietly. "They want to study me, lock me up for the village's safety, maybe hand me over to whoever's willing to pay the highest price for a pet god." "Some of them, yes." Hiruzen settled beside him with a weary sigh. "Others want to weaponize you, turn you into Konoha's ultimate deterrent against our enemies, and a few," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "a few are wise enough to be terrified of what you represent. And what do I represent? Change. The kind of fundamental shift that makes old power structures obsolete overnight." The Hokage's eyes were distant, seeing patterns that stretched far beyond the village borders. "Your display during the invasion was seen by more than just our people. Spy networks, foreign dignitaries, merchants who sell information for profit. By now, every major power in the world knows that a Lunarian lives." The implications hit Naruto like a physical weight. "So the whole world becomes my enemy, or your ally?" Hiruzen's voice carried a note of hope that seemed forced. "Power of your magnitude doesn't create neutrality, Naruto, it creates polarization. People will either flock to your banner or unite against the threat you represent." Before Naruto could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed across the damaged rooftop. Team 7 emerged from the stairwell, Kakashi looking troubled, Sakura pale but determined, and Sasuke wearing an expression of barely controlled intensity. "The village is talking," Sakura said without preamble. "Half of them think you're the second coming of the Sage of Six Paths, the other half think you're a demon pretending to be divine." "What do you think?" Naruto asked. "I think you're an idiot who almost got himself killed trying to save everyone at once." Her voice cracked slightly. "But I also think you're the same person who never gave up on me, even when I was too blind to see past my crush on Sasuke." Sasuke stepped forward, his sharing inactive but his eyes burning with familiar determination. "The village council isn't the only group that wants to meet with you. I've been contacted by interested parties." "What kind of interested parties?" "The kind that wear masks and speak in code names." Sasuke's expression darkened. "They're calling themselves the Divine Reformation Movement. Survivors of bloodline massacres, descendants of extinct clans, people who have been hunted for their heritage just like you have." Naruto felt his heart skip. "Other Lunarians? Not Lunarians specifically, but..." Sasuke produced a scroll from his weapon pouch. "Read this." The message was written in a code that took Naruto several minutes to decipher, but when he did, his flames flickered with involuntary hope. "To the last flame of the Sky People, you are not alone. The blood of gods flows in more veins than the world's suspects. Hidden villages harbor the descendants of the Uzumaki. Isolated monasteries protect those who carry traces of the Otsutsuki. Deep forests conceal the inheritors of abilities that predate the ninja villages themselves. Your awakening has been a signal fire to those who thought they were the only ones left. We propose a gathering, not of conquest, but of protection. A coalition of the divine to ensure that no bloodline ever faces extinction again. If you are willing to lead, we are willing to follow. The phoenix rises from ashes, but it does not rise alone. How many? Naruto whispered. The scroll doesn't say. But judging by the encryption method and the delivery network they used. Sasuke's voice grew thoughtful. This isn't some desperate group of survivors. This is an organization with resources, intelligence networks, and reach across multiple countries. Kakashi cleared his throat diplomatically. Before you get too excited, you should know that several other groups have also made contact. The Akatsuki have increased their activities significantly since the invasion. Missing nin with rare bloodlines are disappearing in greater numbers. And there are reports of new research facilities being constructed in locations that match protocol methodology. Everyone wants a piece of the last god, Hiruzen said grimly. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Naruto stared out over the village, watching civilians and shinobi work side by side to repair the damage from the invasion. Children played in the streets despite their parents' worried glances at the sky. Shopkeepers swept glass from their storefronts and opened for business anyway. Life continued, stubborn and resilient in the face of forces that sought to destroy it. Kaito told me I wasn't the last, he said finally. He said I was the first of a new age. I didn't understand what he meant then. And now, Sakura asked gently, now I think he meant that hiding is what killed my people. They scattered to the winds, fought alone, died in isolation while their enemies grew stronger through cooperation. Naruto stood, white flames beginning to dance around his clenched fists. I won't make that mistake. He turned to face his team, his mentor, and the leader of his village. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority that hadn't been there weeks before, the weight of divine heritage fully accepted. I'll meet with the Divine Reformation Movement. I'll listen to what they have to say, but I'm not abandoning Konoha and I'm not becoming anyone's weapon or symbol. His flames flared brighter. I'm going to do what Lunarians should have done centuries ago. I'm going to build bridges instead of walls. That's a dangerous path, Hiruzen warned, uniting disparate bloodlines under a single banner. It will be seen as a direct threat to the existing order. Good. Naruto's smile held edges that would have made his enemies reconsider their life choices. Maybe the existing order needs to be threatened. Maybe it's time for the world to remember what happens when gods decide to work together instead of against each other. Sasuke's own smile was sharper, carrying the promise of violence barely held in check. Count me in. I've spent too long being jealous of your power. Time to see what we can accomplish as allies instead of rivals. And us? Sakura gestured to herself and Kakashi. Team 7 doesn't abandon its members, Kakashi said simply. Wherever this path leads, we walk it together. As if summoned by their words, a messenger hawk landed on the damaged rooftop, bearing a scroll sealed with wax that glowed with contained chakra. Naruto accepted it with steady hands, though his heart hammered against his ribs. The message was brief. The gathering begins at the next new moon. Location coordinates follow. Come alone or bring those you trust with your life. The choice, as always, is yours. A fellow phoenix, 2 weeks, Naruto said, calculating the lunar cycle. 2 weeks to decide the future of everyone who carries divine blood. No pressure, Sakura said dryly. But Naruto was already thinking beyond the immediate decision. The protocol would be preparing for their next assault, probably with even more advanced anti-Lunarian technology. The Akatsuki were moving with purpose that suggested they knew more about his heritage than they'd revealed. Foreign governments were undoubtedly developing contingency plans for dealing with a rogue god in their midst. And somewhere out there, other descendants of extinct bloodlines were making their own desperate choices about whether to trust a boy who had spent most of his life being called a monster. Not just pressure, he said finally. Opportunity. For the first time since the Great Purge, divine blood is choosing cooperation over isolation. Whatever happens next. He looked out over Konoha one more time, memorizing the site of his home, recovering from wounds that should have been fatal. Then his wings unfurled, catching the morning light and casting rainbow shadows across the rooftop. Whatever happens next, we face it as we should have from the beginning, together. The phoenix rises from ashes, but it does not rise alone. As Team 7 prepared to descend into the village and begin planning for a gathering that would reshape the world, none of them noticed the figure watching from a distant rooftop. Behind a mask of polished obsidian, ancient eyes studied the last Lunarian with calculating interest. The Akatsuki had been waiting for this moment for decades. Soon, it would be time to collect what they had come for. But first, they would let the boy gather his allies. After all, it was so much more efficient to capture multiple divine bloodlines in a single operation. The hunt continued, but the rules were about to change in ways that would surprise everyone involved. The Age of Gods was returning, and the world would never be the same. The Valley of the End had witnessed many battles throughout history, but none quite like this. Ancient statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha faced each other across churning waters, eternal monuments to a friendship that had ended in tragedy. Now, as storm clouds gathered overhead, 2 more friends prepared to write their own ending in blood and fire. Sasuke stood on Madara's head, the cursed seal's influence completely gone but replaced by something far more dangerous, his own unbridled ambition. The months since Naruto's public revelation as a Lunarian had changed him, honed his desperation into a blade sharp enough to cut through any bond. "You came," he said without turning as Naruto landed on Hashirama's statue. "I wasn't sure you would. Of course I came." Naruto's voice carried the weariness of someone who had been fighting battles on multiple fronts for months. The Divine Reformation movement had proven to be everything their message promised, a network of survivors and descendants that spanned continents. But unity among the divine came with its own prices. "You're my best friend, team. That doesn't change just because you've lost your mind." "Lost my mind?" Sasuke finally turned and Naruto felt his breath catch. The Sharingan that spun lazily in his friend's eyes wasn't the familiar 3-tomo pattern. It had evolved into something new, something that hurt to look at directly. "I've finally found clarity." The design was unmistakable to anyone who had studied the deeper mysteries of the Uchiha bloodline. The Mangekyo Sharingan awakened through the trauma of witnessing divine power that would forever be beyond his reach. "Sasuke, when did you—" "The night you saved the village." Sasuke's voice was eerily calm. "Watching you burn away those artificial gods, seeing you ascend to power that should have been impossible, it awakened something in me, not the curse marks corruption, but my own truth." The Mangekyo spun faster, and suddenly the air between them filled with black flames that burned with impossible hunger. Amaterasu, the technique that would consume anything it touched until nothing remained but ash and memory. "I realized that night that I was never meant to stand beside you." Sasuke continued as Naruto dodged the divine fire with enhanced reflexes. I was meant to surpass you, to prove that human will can triumph over divine birthright. Naruto's own flames roared to life, white fire meeting black in a clash that sent shockwaves through the valley. Steam rose where their energies met, but neither technique could overpower the other. Both burned with the authority of gods, one inherited and one claimed through suffering. This isn't about power, Sasuke, Naruto called out as they broke apart, both breathing heavily from the initial exchange. It's about the loneliness. You think taking my heritage will fill the hole inside you, but it won't. You know nothing about loneliness, Sasuke's composure cracked, revealing the raw pain beneath. You had a village that loved you despite your burden. You had teammates who accepted you despite your secrets. You had mentors who saw potential instead of threat. The Mangekyo flared, and suddenly Sasuke wasn't just using Amaterasu, he was shaping it, controlling the divine fire with precision that should have been impossible. Black flames formed weapons, shields, constructs of pure destruction that danced to his will. What did I have? He continued, each word punctuated by attacks that carved trenches in the valley floor. A dead clan, a brother who killed them all, and the knowledge that no matter how hard I trained, no matter what sacrifices I made, I would never be anything more than human. Naruto felt his heart break at the anguish in his friend's voice. This wasn't the calculating ambition he'd expected. It was a desperate, wounded cry for validation from someone who had spent his entire life feeling like he wasn't enough. You're right, he said quietly, his flames dimming to a gentle glow. You'll never be anything more than human, but Sasuke, that's what makes you amazing. The unexpected response made Sasuke pause, his Amaterasu flickering as confusion replaced rage. What? I was born with divine fire in my blood. I didn't earn it, didn't choose it, it just was. Naruto stepped closer despite the lingering black flames. But you took the Sharingan's power and made it yours through pure determination. You turned trauma into strength, loss into motivation. That's not divine, it's miraculous. Stop, Sasuke's voice cracked. Don't you dare pity me. I'm not pitying you, I'm envying you. The admission shocked them both. Do you know what I wouldn't give to have earned my power the way you've earned yours? To know that every technique, every victory, every moment of strength came from my own choices instead of an accident of birth. The black flames guttered out completely as Sasuke stared at his friend in disbelief. You're lying, I've never lied to you. Naruto's white fire began to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Not about the important things, and this is important, Sasuke, you are important. Not because of what power you have or don't have, but because of who you choose to be with it. For a moment, hope flickered in Sasuke's eyes. His Mangekyo stopped spinning and his stance relaxed fractionally. The valley fell silent except for the sound of water flowing far below. Then Orochimaru's voice whispered across the wind, carried by jutsu that made it seem like the Sannin was speaking directly into Sasuke's mind. Pretty words from someone who will never understand the weight of mortality. He speaks of choice, but what choice did you have when your clan died? What choice did you have when he was revealed as divine? His pity tastes sweet now, but it will turn bitter when the world bows to his godhood and forgets your name entirely. Sasuke's expression hardened and the Mangekyo blazed back to life. You still don't understand. This isn't about earning power, it's about taking it. And if I have to tear your divine fire from your very soul to prove that human can triumph over cosmic destiny, then so be it. The technique he unleashed had no name in any shinobi manual because it had never existed before. It was pure Mangekyo innovation, a construct of Amaterasu and Susanoo combined into something that challenged the very foundations of what chakra could achieve. A skeletal warrior of black flame erupted around Sasuke, its burning bones reaching toward the storm clouds. In its hands materialized weapons forged from concentrated Amaterasu, a bow that fired arrows of divine destruction, a sword that could cut through space itself. Susanoo, flame god of vengeance? The construct drew its bow and fired, loosing an arrow of black fire that carved through the air with enough force to level mountains. Naruto barely managed to dodge, his enhanced speed the only thing that saved him from vaporization. But this was exactly what Sasuke had hoped for. Each near miss, each desperate evasion, each moment where Naruto's divine heritage was pushed to its limits to match human ingenuity weaponized through the Mangekyo's power. "Do you see now?" Sasuke called out from within his burning construct. "Your birthright makes you fast, makes you strong, gives you wings and fire and all the trappings of godhood, but it doesn't make you smart. It doesn't make you creative. It doesn't give you the desperation needed to push beyond every limit." To prove his point, the Susanoo began to change, its form shifting as Sasuke's will imposed new configurations onto the divine fire. Wings of Amaterasu spread from its shoulders, not mimicking Naruto's Lunarian heritage but surpassing it, turning the black flames into a mockery of divine grace. This is what human determination looks like when it refuses to accept second place to the gods. Naruto felt something snap inside him, not his temper but his restraint. All the careful control he'd learned from Hiruzen, all the measured responses Jiraiya had drilled into him, all the responsibility that came with being the last of his kind. It crumbled before the sight of his best friend burning himself alive to prove a point. His wings exploded from his shoulder blades with enough force to shatter both statues they stood on. White fire erupted from every pore, not the controlled flames he'd grown accustomed to, but the raw, unfiltered power of a Lunarian pushed beyond all reasonable limits. "You want to see what divine birthright really looks like?" His voice carried harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "Fine, but don't blame me when you realize that some gaps can't be bridged by willpower alone." The technique that followed had no precedent in Lunarian history because no Lunarian had ever been desperate enough to attempt it. Naruto reached beyond his own flames, beyond even the cosmic forces Jiraiya had taught him to access, and touched something fundamental, the stellar fire that burned at the heart of creation itself. Lunarian forbidden art. Stellar Heart, a miniature star blazed to life in his hands, its gravity pulling debris from miles around. The temperature spiked beyond anything the valley had ever endured, turning sand to glass and rock to vapor. This wasn't just divine fire anymore, it was the power that lit suns and forged worlds. Sasuke's Susanoo met the attack head-on, black flame clashing against stellar fire in a display that could be seen from orbit. For a moment, it seemed like human will might actually triumph. The Amaterasu construct held its ground, its burning form refusing to be consumed by cosmic forces. Then physics reasserted itself. The Susanoo shattered like spun glass, its black flames snuffed out by energies that existed on a different order of magnitude entirely. Sasuke fell from the sky, his Mangekyo flickering as the technique's backlash overwhelmed his chakra system. Naruto caught him before he could hit the water, his stellar fire dimming back to merely divine levels as he cradled his unconscious friend. The valley around them had been transformed, glass plains stretching to the horizon, the statues reduced to melted slag, even the waterfall temporarily reversed by the gravitational disturbance. "I'm sorry," he whispered to Sasuke's still form. "I'm sorry it had to be this way. I'm sorry the world made you feel like you had to burn yourself up just to stand beside me." Sasuke's eyes fluttered open, the Mangekyo now dim and barely functional. When he spoke, his voice was small and broken, the voice of the boy who had lost everything and spent years pretending he was strong enough to bear it alone. Did I at least make you fight seriously?" "Yeah." Naruto's smile was sad but genuine. "For a minute there, you were the strongest human alive. Hell, you might still be, but not strong enough. Strong enough to be my equal, strong enough to be my friend, strong enough to stand at my side when the world decides that gods need to be put in their place." Naruto helped Sasuke sit up, careful not to jostle his injuries. "That's all I ever wanted, team. Not a rival, not a worshiper, not someone trying to prove they're better than me. Just my friend." They sat together in the ruins of the valley, two young men who had pushed themselves beyond all reasonable limits and found something precious in the wreckage. Around them, the world continued to turn, but for this moment, nothing existed except the bond that had survived divine fire and human ambition alike. In the distance, figures watched from concealment. ANBU preparing to escort them home, protocol agents cataloging the display for their researchers, Akatsuki members noting the power levels for future reference. Everyone wanted to know what the confrontation had revealed about the last Lunarian's capabilities. None of them understood that the most important revelation had nothing to do with power levels or combat techniques. Naruto Uzumaki, heir to divine fire and cosmic flame, had chosen his mortal friend over the easy path of godly isolation. And Sasuke Uchiha, genius of the Sharingan and inheritor of human will, had chosen to stand with his divine friend rather than burn alone in his ambition. The bond between them had been tested in stellar fire and found stronger than the forces that forged worlds. Whatever came next, they would face it together. God and mortal, divine flame and human determination, two halves of a whole that was greater than the sum of its parts. The Valley of the End had witnessed the birth of many legends, but this was the first time it had seen friendship triumph over destiny itself. And that's Naruto's incredible journey from the last Lunarian to choosing humanity over godhood. From awakening divine flames to that legendary final sacrifice, what an epic ride. What was your favorite moment? The insane Sasuke battle, Kaido's sacrifice, that mind-blowing finale? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe for more epic crossover breakdowns and let me know what broken character combinations you want next. Alright guys, peace out.